Some doors should never be opened. Some rooms remember every soul that ever stepped inside them, and some stories write you back. Welcome to Stories, Fables, Ghostly Tales, The Lodger in 6B, a tale stitched from silence, madness and ink, a weathered story passed down from parent to child, across generations too frightened to forget. Sit down, turn off the lights, and listen closely. Because once you hear what waits behind the door of Unit 6B, you'll never look at a blank journal the same way again. Enjoy. Come here, my dear. Sit beside me. Close now. I need to tell you something, and I want you to remember it. Not just with your head, but with your bones. Because this story is not just old, it is true, and it has teeth. You've seen the building, haven't you? Broughton Square, that tall, crooked place at the end of Malden Street. The one with the iron steps that always seem damp, no matter the weather. The bricks too dark, the windows too small, and that heavy silence that clings to it like soot. You've passed it before, maybe even thought about it once or twice, when the rent seemed too steep elsewhere. A room opened up recently, didn't it? Unit 6B. Yes. That's the one. That's the room I'm going to tell you about. They always make it look nice in the advertisements. Spacious, affordable, perfect for artists or writers. They never mention what it costs to stay, or what it takes when you try to leave. The man I'm about to tell you about, Aaron Hollis, he thought it was just a room, a new beginning, a place to work in peace. But 6B doesn't offer peace. It offers silence, and silence, child, is a very different thing. Aaron was a writer. Well, not exactly. He worked as a speech clerk for the state, copied things, drafted sermons, and eulogies for men who could no longer speak them. A quiet man, thin and twitching, fresh from the asylum they'd built out near the pines. He said the walls there had begun to talk back. The nurses laughed. But walls, child, can talk, if you bleed into them long enough. He took the apartment in early winter, 1927, paid in cash, carried nothing but a suitcase, a leather-bound journal, and a half-broken typewriter. The building was older then, yes, but no warmer. Folks didn't stay long above the 4th floor, but the landlord offered him 6B at half price. Aaron asked why it was so cheap. The landlord only said, "She don't like being empty." Aaron took the key anyway. He shouldn't have. The first 3 days were normal. He unpacked, set up a typewriter near the window, drank rye and smoked in silence. He wrote nothing, but silence is loud in places like 6B, loud enough to shape thoughts into whispers. By the 4th night, the neighbors heard scratching. Not mice, not boards shifting, scratching, constant, sharp, like a pen being dragged too hard across a page over and over again. Hours of it, no pause, no sleep. One tenant said it sounded like someone trying to scrape a story out of their own skin. But no one said anything, not then. People kept to themselves in Broughton Square, and that was their first mistake. Aaron kept writing, and something in the room began to listen. He started talking to the walls, at first just muttering, rereading his work aloud, but then the pauses, long silences, as if something were answering. By the seventh night, he no longer left the room. The landlady knocked once. He opened the door an inch, just enough for her to see his face. His eyes were gone. Still open, but gone. Not gouged, not bleeding, just gone. In their place, something like ink, rippling, staring, watching from inside. He shut the door before she could speak. That was the last time anyone saw him in whole. I want you to remember that, child, that door 6B, because one day you might see it open. You might feel tempted. You might think it's just a room. It's just a place to write, to work, to think. But that's not what it is. Not at all. The door leads to something far older than walls. And once it learns your name, it begins to write you. It was the 8th night when the wallpaper began to peel. Not in chunks, no. It unfurled slowly from the corners first, like it had been holding its breath for years, and now it could finally exhale. Aaron noticed it while sitting at his desk. The typewriter untouched, the pages blank. He had been staring at the wall opposite him for hours, not thinking, just listening. That's when the first strip curled down, silent as a dead man's smile. He leaned closer, touched it. It was warm, and something whispered. Not from behind the paper, not from within the wall, from the paper itself. He pressed it to his ear. I imagine his heart was a frantic thing then, fluttering in his chest like a bird that knows it's already in the cat's mouth. And the voice, oh child, the voice was not in words, not at first. It was scratching, faint, like quill on parchment, then louder, urgent, wet. It wrote into his ear, not sound, but shapes, thought patterns, not language as you know it, not something that could be read, only remembered. He staggered back, but the whisper had already nested behind his eyes. Over the next days, the room changed. The furniture seemed to shift slightly when he left it. The desk grew taller, the mirror stretched, the ceiling dropped, as though something heavy had begun to crawl across the beams overhead. And that wallpaper, it kept peeling. Each strip revealed marks beneath, black ink drawn directly onto the plaster. Symbols, diagrams, some looked like musical notation, others like old, alchemical sigils. And some were letters, yes, but in no language spoken by the clean, living. One was shaped like a mouth sewn shut, another like an eye staring back no matter where you stood. He tried to cover them again, nailed the wallpaper flat, but in the night he heard the tearing, soft at first, then louder, like fabric caught on a jagged tooth. When he awoke, all the walls were bare, and across the entire north-facing wall something had written, "You have been read," in his own handwriting. Only he hadn't written it. That was the same night the neighbors reported the smell. No, not rot, not exactly, but something sour and inky, like old books soaked in stagnant water, like the smell of something that had been thinking for too long in the dark. Now, my dear, you must understand, this wasn't a haunting. No chains, no cold drafts, no ghastly faces in the mirror. This was communion. Aaron hadn't just found something in the room. He had become part of it, like a page in a journal, a sentence inside a greater thought, and 6B was writing him into itself. Each night the whispers grew clearer. They began to use his name, not just once, but over and over, and each time they said it, it sounded a little more like him. People in the building began to have dreams of corridors that led nowhere, lined with mirrors that showed not your reflection, but your regrets. Dreams of hearing Aaron whispering from inside the radiator, begging them to take the ink out of his lungs. One tenant in 5C woke to find writing on her ceiling, in black, in cursive, in her mother's voice, and her mother had been dead 17 years. They moved out the next morning, but Aaron stayed. Oh yes, he stayed, because by then the room wasn't whispering to him anymore. It was whispering through him. And there's more, much more. But you look pale, child. Still want me to continue? Hold on tight to your breath now, child. As I get under your skin like a splinter you can't quite dig out. And the ink here begins to bleed, and once it does not stop. They say there are places in this world where the veil is thinner, where the stitching between what is and what waits behind grows loose. But that apartment, 6B, it wasn't thin. It was open. By the 10th night, Aaron hadn't left the room in days. The food he'd brought with him sat untouched. The typewriter, once his prized thing, had been pushed into the closet and buried under towels. He only wrote into the journal now. That black-bound one, wrote and listened, and the whispers were getting louder. He began to talk back. He would ask them things, I have no doubt of it. Questions no sane man should ask a wall. And the wall, child, answered, because it liked him, because he was soft, cracked open already, even before he came, and on that night, when the wind howled low and the lights across the street blinked out one by one, Aaron heard a new sound, not scratching, not whispering, a wet, exhale. Long, slow, like breathing through a throat not made for breathing. He turned to the wall beside the kitchen door, and it was changing. The wallpaper wasn't peeling anymore, it was splitting, opening like skin sliced too deep. Beneath it wasn't brick or plaster, beneath it was flesh, grey, pulsing, alive, my child, and in the centre of it something formed, a shape pressing forward as though the wall was giving birth to a thought it had no name for. A circle, then a line, then a mouth. Not human, too wide, lips jagged and raw, as if someone had sewn them shut, and they'd burst free under pressure. No teeth at first, just black, black and wet and watching. Then it opened, and it spoke in his voice. Aaron Hollis, we missed your mouth. He screamed, of course. Anyone would. He backed into the desk, knocking over a lamp. Light spun wildly across the walls, catching shapes where there shouldn't be any. Hands in the corner, curled like spiders, but the mouth never flinched. It just hung there, open, humming slightly, waiting. You wrote us before the forgetting, before you were flesh. Come back in, for we are so hungry. Aaron grabbed the journal, tore out the last page, threw it at the thing. The paper vanished, sucked inward, like it had been eaten, and the wall shuddered, moaned, a sound like old floorboards and birthing pain. He ran for the door. It wouldn't open. The knob was soft, warm. He slammed his fist against it, pulsing slightly, like a heart behind too thin skin. He slammed his fist against it. Then the floor buckled. Yes, buckled, child, like it had never been made of wood, like something under the board had turned over in its sleep. Aaron fell hard, scraping his hands. They bled. The moment his blood touched the floor, the mouth began to sing. Not music, just his name over and over, twisted like a prayer and a curse all at once. Aaron Hollis. Aaron Hollis. 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 The writing began again, across the halls, the ceiling, the floor. Not with pen, just appearing, like sweat rising through skin. Words no longer words, symbols that moved when you blinked, and the journal, his precious journal, it opened on its own. A page flipped, then another. Then the pen lifted, quivering in the air like it was held by unseen fingers, and it wrote, I have returned. The ink remembers me. I will feed the walls. He collapsed, sobbing or laughing. By then, who could say? And the mouth wide as the room whispered one final thing before he blacked out. Sleep now. We will wear your hands when you awake. That's how the room greets its favorites, child, not with death, but with purpose, the kind of purpose that never ends. Aaron awoke on the floor, trembling. The room was cold, but his skin was hot, clammy, fevered, as if some deep part of him had been rewound and snapped too tight. He couldn't remember falling asleep, couldn't remember dreaming. But the journal was open beside him, and something had written while he slept. The ink was still wet, thick, almost tar-like. He reached for the pen, but it moved away from his hand, as if dragged by an invisible string. Then it scratched again across the page, just once. Don't interrupt. That was the first moment he understood he was no longer the author, just a surface, a page waiting to be filled. The handwriting wasn't quite his, not at first, too spidery, too narrow. But by the 5th page, it had become identical, perfectly forged, letters shaped with a familiar rhythm, a curl on the G, the hook on the F. Every detail matched the way he had written sermons, and apologies for men too broken to speak their own regrets. It was him, but not him, and what it wrote, child, what it wrote was not a story, not even a diary. It was a summoning. It began with names, dozens, hundreds, people Aaron didn't know, but somehow as he read them, he remembered them, faces he'd never seen, lives he had never touched. Owen Kinnock missing 1841, last seen inside 6B. Majori Elwell died in her sleep 6B, 1870. Though the coroner found no body, only clothes. Samuel Weiss, swallowed by the mirror. Each name began to stitch itself into his mind like thread pulled through meat. The journal bled dates, symbols, coordinates even. Lines of a map not meant for human hands. He began to see patterns on the walls, lines and arrows linking names and places, a constellation of disappearances all connected to one thing, the apartment. It had been there longer than Broughton Square, longer than the street, longer than the city, and the journal remembered it all. He tried to stop it, of course, locked the book in the oven. It returned to the desk. He tore out the pages. It rewrote them. He burned it. Child, he set the whole damn thing alight. And in the morning, it was back on the bed, open to a fresh page. And the next line said, "We like when you fight. It makes the words hungrier." By the 12th night, he stopped sleeping, not out of fear, out of necessity, because every time he closed his eyes, he woke up in a different place. Not outside, not inside either, somewhere between. A room made of pages, the walls turning slowly, the floor stitched with cursive, the ceiling blank, waiting for his name to be carved in it. And always in the center, the journal, open, bleeding, whispering. You were written to, Aaron. You think you're alive because you chose to be. You were printed, bound, left on a shelf until we opened you. He woke up screaming more times than he could count, but each time the scream tasted more like ink in his throat. The last thing the journal wrote before the change, before the walls opened, was this: "The story is nearly done. We just need one more page." And beneath it, in his own voice, "Yours." Now, child, you must understand, Aaron was no longer a man. He was a vessel. No one heard from him after that night. The neighbors reported a silence too complete, the kind of silence that makes your ears ring. And then, from inside the apartment, a sound like paper tearing, and something soft being chewed. I'll give you a moment now, child. Oh, you still want to know? 3 Days. That's how long the building sat in silence. No light through the windows of 6B, no footsteps overhead, no scratching, no muttering, no law, liquid exhale sliding down the pipes. Just stillness, the kind that feels wrong, the kind that pulses like something pretending to be asleep. The neighbors noticed, but no one knocked. You see, they all felt it by then, some weight behind that door. A pressure, a presence. The building had swallowed men before, but this time it felt full, like something had finished eating. But the landlord, Mr. Ulrich Dunn, had no such fears. He was a big man, grey and stiff-backed, a man who believed the only thing haunting buildings was unpaid rent. He'd rented out 6B more times than he could count. He'd seen tenants vanish, yes, but always left behind a toothbrush, a coat, a smudge of grease on the stove, proof of life interrupted. He figured Aaron Hollis was the same. So he fetched his master key, climbed the stairs, and opened the door. He didn't come out for nearly 20 minutes. When he did, he walked right past the neighbors staring, through the peepholes, down the steps, out the front door, into the streets, and kept walking. Didn't lock the building, didn't speak a word, just kept going. He was never seen again. Not in this city, not in this country, not in any place where roads follow reason. But we do know what he saw, because someone, days later, had the sense or the curse to go inside after him. The constable, I've forgotten his name, doesn't matter now. He went up alone in the morning just after dawn, and when he returned his hair had turned white as snow. He tried to hang himself 2 hours later. Survived. They say he never spoke a coherent word again, but he wrote, just once, on the padded walls of his cell, using the point of his fingernail. The room was not empty. Here is what the coroner's report claimed, though the file was lost within a month. No furniture, no journal, no typewriter, no man. But the walls were covered, ceiling to floor, every inch, not painted, not written, carved. Tiny etchings, impossible detail, like a library written on grain. Thousands of lines, letters that looped and curled and twisted inward, each one spelling the same 5 words. It wears me like skin. Over and over and over. No sign of forced entry, no fingerprints, no blood, only a single pan placed in the center of the floor, still wet, still warm, still dripping. Since then, no one has lived in 6B. The door remains closed, not locked, oh no. That would imply it needs a key. It opens when it wants to, and sometimes, on windless nights, people say they see it just barely ajar, waiting, inviting. The room is patient. It always has been, and it remembers every name it ever learned. So now, child, you understand why I brought you here, why I've told you this, because you, too, are a writer, because you dream of solitude, of silence, because I found that flyer in your coat pocket. Affordable housing, spacious, Unit 6B, Now, open. Don't go. Don't even look at the door. Because if you do, if it sees you, it will write you next. Only one chapter remains. And I shan't keep you waiting, child. Blank pages with names must get written after all. The apartment stayed quiet for a long time. After that, years, perhaps, it's hard to tell. Time warps around that room. Clock slow, mirrors tick instead of talk. You start thinking days are shorter, but only because the nights are getting longer. 6B sat untouched. Tenants on the same floor moved out or died, quietly in their chairs. No one claimed that space. Not until the boy came. He was 17. A runaway. No name listed, no next of kin, just a duffel bag and a hunger for stillness. The building didn't advertise the room anymore, but somehow he found it. And 6B had opened for him. No landlord, no key, just a door that creaked open when he passed, slow and low, like a mouth remembering how to smile. He stepped inside, and the door shut behind him. That would be the end of the tale if this were like other ghost stories, but this story is still alive. Because the boy, you see, he found something waiting on the desk, a journal, black leather, slightly warm. No dust, though no one had been in the room for years. And on the first page in perfect, wet ink, "Hello again, Aaron Hollis." He frowned. That wasn't his name. But the moment he read it, he felt something shift inside him, a tightening in his spine, a flicker of memory that wasn't his. He turned the page, and the pen lifted on its own. It wrote, "Don't be afraid. You're just a draft. We'll finish writing you soon." The boy screamed, ran to the door. It was gone. Only wall now, and within the wallpaper the faces began to press forward, dozens, all silent, their mouths stitched, their eyes wide, each one trying to warn him too late. It said the boy still walks the room, though his skin is not his anymore. He wears Aaron's voice. He thinks in journal entries, and if you stand outside 6B at just the right hour, between the third and fourth chime of the night bell, you can hear scratching again. Not rats. Writing, frenzied, unstoppable. And if you press your ear to the door, the story will start whispering your name. And that's the end, child. Not of the story, but of the telling. Because now you know it. And stories like this, they don't want silence. They want witnesses. So keep it safe. Keep it close and never write your name down while thinking of that room. Names are the first things it takes. Do you understand now why I told you? Why I'm afraid? Because when I was your age, I read the journal too, and it never forgot me. That's why we never go near Broughton Square, because the last page is still blank and it's waiting. Waiting. And may you never see my ink again. You just heard the story of Aaron Hollis, or maybe what's left of him. The apartment still waits, the journal still breathes, and the last page has room for just one more name. Is it yours? Be careful what you listen to in the dark, and never write your name while thinking of Broughton Square. This has been a story from me to you at Stories, Fables, Ghostly Tales. If you like what you heard, visit my website, www.storiesfablesghostlytales.com, where I have over 900 episodes ready for your lovely ears. You can listen to me on iTunes or anywhere else. SoundCloud also has all my episodes there as well. And if you want to support the podcast, you can visit my Patreon, which is www.patreon.com/SFGT, where you get early access to episodes by 1 week, high quality audio, and participate in community events like voting for upcoming stories. Now, legends, I want to say a huge thank you to all of my Patreon supporters right now. Let's jump on in. My first and amazing, spectacular friendo of mine is Matto Star, my Ode Night Tea Titan. Some names are not written, they are carved into the dark, so that even when the journal burns and the walls fall silent, they remain. And among those names, none shine brighter or steadier than Matto Star. While Aaron Hollis lost himself to the whispers of 6B, while the ink ran like blood and the mouths in the wall opened wide, it was Matto Star who watched from above, charting constellations in the void, holding the threads of sanity together with the faintest gravity of grace. Matto Star, the first patron of the archive, a keeper of memory, a scribe behind the scribes, the reason the journal does not forget and never forgives. It is said the stars cannot speak, but we know better. Matto Star whispered back once, and the story changed its ending. Thank you immensely, Matto, for your support, your friendship, and your awesome self. Have a wicked week ahead of you, and I'm lucky to call you my pal. We'll be in touch soon, legend. And now, I want to thank my white tea warlords. First up is Lezosaurus Rex, keeper of the Iron Asylum. My thanks to Leza the Keeper, whose strength humbles walls and steadies minds. When the room tightens and the journal coils like a trap, it is Leza's force that holds the madness at bay. In the archive where ink flows like blood, Leza lifts it, and the shadows remember. Thank you so much, you superstar, for being my pal and being a stalwart supporter. Absolute legend. Have a wonderful week ahead, Leza, and a fantastic gym sesh. My next white tea warlord, Maya Catwalker Between Worlds. We thank Maya Catwalker, whose silent companions slip between cracks, curling in corners where the whispers dare not reach. The walls hate eyes that see too much, you see. But Maya's cats see everything, and when she speaks, the dark listens, tail twitching, purring low. Thank you so much, Maya, for your support, friendship, and I hope you have a brilliant week ahead of yourself as well. And to my next white tea warlord, Sangeetha, the seer behind the stained stars. Our deep gratitude to you, Sangeetha. Some read stories, some write them, but Sangeetha sees them before they are spoken, remembers what has not yet happened, and whispers truth that unravels the ink. The archive flinches beneath her gaze, and that is why we trust her. Thank you so much, Sangeetha, for your friendship and support. Have a brilliant week ahead of yourself. And to my Earl Grey enforcers and all tears after this, I am grateful to have Chad Warren, Divided by Zero, Juicebox Andy, Just Heather, Paige Kramer, Peter Raffaelli, Rhonda Ray, Seductive Smiles, Jane Gumnick, and Michael Krupp. Thank you, you legends, for all your support. And I'll be just around the corner next Monday, or Sunday for Patreon supporters. And your stories are just around the corner. Only a week's wait. Have a fantastic week ahead of yourselves, and I'll catch you all very, very soon. Thank you for listening.